Welcome, everyone. We're delighted to see so many people join us for our very first Learning and Development session of 2024. My name's Nicola Parry, and I'm the Head of Lived Experience Engagement and Integration at Wijisinghe Ocean, and I'm joined today by my team member, Julia Granahan. We're delighted to be your hosts for today, and we're also even more delighted to welcome 4 extraordinary individuals who will be your contributors for today's session. That's John Eddy, Karyn Moyle, Sam Phipps, and Fairley Wijisinghe. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we're all meeting today, and acknowledge that we all come from different lands. Julia and I are coming to you from the Yagara and Turrbal people's country on Meanjin land, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. And we also extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who join us on this session today. We'd also like to acknowledge everyone's lived experience of suicide on this session today, and the invaluable lived experience, insights, experience and knowledge that you all bring to this session today and to suicide prevention more broadly. And before we make the introductions that we've all been waiting for, I'll pass to Julia for some quick guidelines on housekeeping. Thanks, Julia.
This session has been designed to be led by the lived experience community members that we have joining us today for our lived experience community. So this is very much your session today. We will be having an open Q&A, and we please ask that everybody who would like to submit a question to our contributors use the Q&A function on the webinar. Please note we will not be moderating the chat throughout this session, so if you do have a question that you'd like addressed, please make sure that you place it into the Q&A part of the webinar. We also will be attempting to cover as many questions as possible throughout this session. However, we do anticipate there will be quite a large number coming through. And if it is the case that we can't respond to everyone, we will be in touch with you directly offline once in the upcoming days. We also want to remind everybody that while this session is focused on pathways to engagement, there will be references to suicide. If you would like to take a pause during this session, we have a lived experience support person available. So please welcome Mark Davis, who will now introduce himself.
Hi, my name is Mark. I'm your lived experience support person from Wijisinghe Ocean, and I'm here for you. Sometimes sessions can deal with some pretty distressing subjects, and you may feel you need to step outside. This, of course, is a very sensible part of self-care. If you leave and would like a gentle talk, please text me with your name on my phone number as given out in the chat, and I'll ring you straight back. I am easy to talk to, experienced, and even have been suspected of having a sense of humour. When you ring, when you text, please do include your name. If you would like to take a note of my number now, in case you are not able to reach the chat, it is 0407 355 523. Okay? I hope you have a productive and enjoyable session, and I'll log off now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. So just to reiterate, if you would like support, please text your name to Mark, as he may be on another call and he will call you back as soon as he's available. I'm just sharing his number in the chat with us all now.
This particular session will provide us all with the opportunity to draw from the insights and experiences of our contributors today, and to learn about their focus areas, including the challenges that they face and their achievements, which will in turn help us and support us in our own work in suicide prevention. We recognise that everyone joining us today will be at different stages of their suicide prevention pathways, and the goal of this session is also to provide clarity around the various suicide prevention activities you can be involved in. But we also want to emphasise that no matter how big or small your contribution, every single person can make a significant impact in suicide prevention. When we leave here today, we're hopeful that everyone will leave with a sense of purpose and defined areas of focus, if that's what you're here for today, a deeper understanding of the key insights shared by our contributors today, and that we're able to build on our contacts and awareness of the supports in our chosen pathways that are available to us, and that we all leave feeling more supported, more connected, and more empowered by this experience today. Without further ado, I'd now like to pass to our panel for introductions, and we'll start with John Eddy. Thanks, John.
Yeah, g'day. Like Nicola said, thanks for that. John Eddy's my name. I am currently involved in quite a few things. I'm a little bit prolific, I guess, in suicide prevention. A year and a half ago, I was running my own plumbing business, so it's been quite a journey to get to here, I guess. So currently, I'm full-time employed by Roses in the Ocean as the Safe Space Project Coordinator, which is an absolutely incredible role. I also sit on the Lifeline WA Lived Experience Advisory Group. I sit on the Standby Support After Suicide National Lived Experience Advisory Group. I also sit on the Every Mind Lived Experience Advisory Group. I'm also a peer support worker for Standby Anglicare in Western Australia. So I've got quite a few hats, but my primary hat is Roses in the Ocean, and I'm incredibly proud to wear this shirt. And I take it very seriously, this role, obviously. Where did I start in suicide prevention? I started out quite small, I guess, and looked at doing things like I joined a local post-vention support group, which helped me after I lost my son to suicide. So I've got like quite a long story with suicide as my lived experience. I lost my mother to suicide in 1985 after a long battle with mental illness. My first understanding of suicide was probably when I was about 12, when I sort of managed to stop her going through with it a few times. I also lost my grandfather when I was 27 to suicide, and my son in 2019. The lack of support when I was a young man led me directly to my own suicide attempt. And recently I've sort of coming to terms with the fact that I'm someone who lives with thoughts of suicide. Everything I do, I keep very firmly focused in front of me, people in distress and who are suffering. And occasionally that person is myself. So that's why I do it. And I want everyone to know that these doors can be unlocked. And I think our lived experience is the key to unlocking these doors. Sometimes they're hard to get open, and sometimes they won't open. And I want people to understand that you don't get dismayed or put off if you can't get everything done that you want to achieve, because you don't always know what success looks like. You may have saved someone's life just by bringing up the subject of suicide with someone, and you think you've got nowhere. I often say that these doors need kicking down, and I think I've probably kicked a few down in my 4 years of doing this work. But I've also had plenty slammed in my face, and it's extremely difficult work. There's no sugarcoating it, to be honest. It can take a personal toll, and it's don't be put off by it. You can achieve amazing things, and especially when we all come together and do it together, we become very powerful. So yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, John. And we'll certainly be asking you some more questions later in the session. Karyn, if you'd like to share with us today, please.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. Firstly, so my name's Karyn. I'm an Eastern Islander Warrapuri woman from Central and Western Desert. However, due to the impacts of the stolen generation, my grandparents grew both myself and my family up here in Darwin on beautiful Larrakia country. However, I'm not calling in from Larrakia country. I'm calling in from Port Keats, who has about 22 clans on the community. And the reason why I'm over here, because what I actually do is I travel around and deliver Aboriginal mental health first aid programs, along with the youth programs and some other programs that focus on the intergenerational trauma side of things and how we can begin that healing process. So I guess I could start from the start, which is I myself was diagnosed with 4 different types of mental health disorders. And I've also experienced the impacts of intergenerational trauma, suicide ideations, and being bereaved by the suicide of my own loved ones, unfortunately. And I guess I was working for the government, for the Department of Human Services, for about 16 years, which got me through, you know, mostly being a single mum and things like that. But in 2017, I lost my own nephew to suicide, and I found that it was very hard to come back from. And it was just the one that sort of tipped it over, because throughout my whole life I've been dealing with having my own suicide ideations, but also dealing with my loved ones being lost. And the last one, I think, for me that really hit home was the one in 2017. So then I realised, well, you know, the work that I was doing, it wasn't where I felt like I needed to be somewhere else. So I started volunteering in that suicide space until I found a job within the youth detention centre in Darwin as a senior social emotional wellbeing officer. And after a period in this position and witnessing the trauma that is placed on our Indigenous youth and incarcerated, it started to make an impact on my own mental health again. So I decided to leave that position and start my own business called Perfectly Imperfect Consulting. And like I said, with this business, I travel all through Northern Australia mainly, delivering these workshops on remote communities, which I absolutely love. It's just my biggest passion now. Can't see me doing anything else. Like I said, with these programs, we discuss such topics as mental health disorders, suicide, self-harm, traumatic events, grief and loss, and how we can begin that healing process. But along with this, I met up with John, and because we were both in standby on the LEAG board together, and then he moved over to Roses, and then he let me know about a grant that was going for a community-led safe space. So I applied for it, and we got it in Darwin. And ever since then, I've been able to, they've given us that support to have a community-led safe space that's non-clinical in Darwin, and we call it Arnie's Place. It's in Driver. And this place is basically somewhere where our community can go if they experience any mental health or suicide ideations, or even if they just want to go there for a chat, have a cup of tea. Just meet with elders or volunteers, but it's somewhere where they feel safe, because it's not always a place like the hospital is not always somewhere where they feel safe. But if they need that clinical safe space, then we can also take them through to the hospital and things like that. It also gives, it gives me the opportunity to still be able to work with our youth who are in and out of the detention centre. And I'm now on many suicide post and prevention mental health boards across the Northern Territory, and 2 national boards, which I absolutely love and I'm grateful to be on. So basically, that's pretty much it for me. Like, I love the work that I'm doing, and it's all really from my lived experience that I've been able to do this. Yeah.
Incredible work there, Karyn. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And we know that you're in the middle of your travels at the moment. You've made time to share this with us today, so we really appreciate that. We'll come to you shortly again. And next we have Fairley. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for having me. Yeah, my name is Fairley. I go as Fairley as well. I am actually a volunteer and an advocate for suicide prevention and mental health well-being. My involvement in suicide prevention is something that's been very important and helpful to me, and it stemmed from the loss of 2 very close loved ones way back in 2014 and 15 to suicide, and then in 2016 an attempt myself. So I began advocating awareness and just to remove the stigma from my family, my friends, my community, and my close network, using my experience and story about the loss of my loved ones and how it kind of, the impact it had on the family and all that kind of stuff. And in 2018, I was very fortunate to be introduced to Roses And that's when I started actually feeling confident with the necessary training and support I got from the Roses team. In the meantime, I was also involved with a local spiritual organization offering counseling and inner healing. And I volunteered in my local council on a task force for suicide prevention among the African community. However, due to funding, the project stalled, and that made me more determined to be a volunteer and to canvas and to be out there for people struggling and grieving and that kind of thing. So for me, being a volunteer in suicide prevention and mental health, it can be quite challenging. However, the rewards are greater, and being able to give something back, not just to save lives, but to prevent the grief and the pain that it leaves behind. It's something that keeps me motivated. And so for the past 6 years, I've been doing this as a volunteer. I've got to a stage where I actually I am going to take this on as a career, and I have done a Cert 4 in mental health, and I'm currently finishing off my diploma in mental health, just to make sure that I have some sort of qualification to marry with my lived and living experience. I believe that, I say that it's a lived experience and a living experience because from the stories and the people that touch me and I touch, I keep learning daily, and that's just a part that sort of motivates me to continue doing this. And I think a volunteer role is as important. And like I said, after 6 years, I'm really this is me. This is my calling now, and that's where I'm at the moment. And yes, I'm so happy to be on this panel with my colleagues and mates. Yep, that's it.
Thank you so much, Fellow. And we're just as happy as you are to have you on this panel as well. And thank you for sharing your insights. And, and just stating and emphasizing that volunteering is an incredibly important role in this space. So we thank you for that. And Sam, we come to you as our final panelist for introductions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thanks so much for having me on the panel today. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Sam, and I use the pronouns she and her. I am privileged to reside and work on Wijisinghe Buja here in Western Australia. And I guess I'm someone with a lived experience of caring for family members who have been in suicidal distress. And I've also been bereaved by suicide, having lost several friends to suicide, which was really challenging for me at that time. And also being able to know what support to provide my friends' family. And I'm also someone who has experienced suicidal thoughts. And it was actually a conversation with someone with a lived experience of suicide that not only saved my life, but also started my journey within the lived experience sector. I started volunteering as a youth mentor on a camp for a local not-for-profit, and really valued that and saw that being the change was a way to change who I was and bring meaning and purpose to my lived experience. But also I applied and received a bursary to attend the Suicide Prevention Australia conference in 2019. And that's actually where I saw Bronwyn Edwards from Roses in the Ocean speak and met a large community of lived experience people who really took me under their wing and made me feel like I felt like I belonged and really connected in with them. I was lucky enough to follow that by attending a Roses in the Ocean Voices of Insight workshop, and then closely followed by an Our Voice in Action workshop, which I was privileged to meet Eddy and we began collaborating in WA to make some changes in that area. I joined Roses in the Ocean's Lived Experience Advisory Group, and now am privileged to chair that and work alongside Fairley in doing some great work and communicating grassroots, what's happening on the ground and the grassroots, and that feed back into what Roses in the Ocean does as an organisation. And I've spent some time upskilling myself as a lived experience educator for Curtin University's Valuing Lived Experience project. And I guess for me, the privilege that I hold here in WA is that I'm currently in a role where I provide support to people who've been impacted by suicide. And I've really seen the value in bringing peer support to those people who might be bereaved or in caring roles. Also part of a local suicide prevention collaborative. And I guess what I really wanted to highlight for people is that there's so many ways in which we can contribute to the lived experience space. For me, it started out as a conversation and led to writing a letter to a member of parliament, joining a LEAG, participating in a survey. And along the way, you know, as I've juggled my family caring roles, I've really had to think about how I can keep it achievable, how I can make a small difference, you know, in a big sector with so much work to do, and also to keep it sustainable. So to avoid burnout, to make sure that I look after my own well-being at that time. And so I guess I really wanted to encourage, you know, everyone on the panel today, everyone who's joining us, and anyone who might be thinking about stepping into the lived experience space, is to keep it simple. Keep it simple and keep it sustainable. Great acronym there, KISS. And, you know, do what you can where you can with the strengths that you have. Everyone brings different strengths to this sector. And I like to consider that we all have a PhD in lived experience. So I hope that we see more people join the path, more doors open, more lights go on, so that we can light the pathway for people. And that's me. Thank you.
Beautiful, Sam. Thank you so much. And there is so much there from all four introductions. So there's just such diverse experience. And as Julia said earlier on in this session, this is very much your session. It's a session for attendees to ask our panel any of the questions that they would like to ask, and if they want to know about certain aspects of suicide prevention that they find that they'd like some support or would like to know more about, then please put your questions in the chat and we will start asking them. Now, one of the recurring questions that has come up in the run-up to this series, and people have reached out to Julia and myself in our work and engagement, is what challenges have you faced working in suicide prevention? How have you navigated your way through them and overcome them? And I'll probably start with you, Sam, seeing, you know, we'll start where we left off, for your perspectives and insights on this.
Thank you. I guess there are a few challenges, but I do want to light a positive, you know, stream on this. I guess professionally and personally for me, with my lived experience, it can be really difficult to sit in spaces where decisions are made and services are designed without input from people with a lived experience, or it can seem tokenistic. Oh, look, you know, we know best for you. You know, particularly in a caring role, that's certainly been challenging. And there are often a number of roadblocks, but I always like to find the detour. If that particular road is blocked, I really like to find another way around it and continue to have respectful conversations. I think it's really important that we keep coming to the table with our information and with our lived experience perspectives, but in a really respectful way. And it might be writing a letter to some, you know, a member of parliament to say, I respectfully disagree with what's been happening here, or there might be some language changes that need to be tweaked here because from my perspective, this is harmful to people with a lived experience. So there are many ways in which it can be really frustrating to work in this space, but I think what keeps me coming back is that we are seeing change and there are detours around the roadblocks. We just need to be persistent in that. And we also need to look after ourselves.
Thanks, Sam. Karyn, would you like to add your insights to that question?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, thank you.
For me, I think the biggest challenges growing up, I never spoke much about my mental health. Growing up, it was always shame, a lot of shames around that. So when I sort of came into these roles, I sort of started to open up because I could see that by me opening up and telling my story, other people would start to open up and tell me theirs. They trusted me more. So, yeah, like I said, it was a challenge to start talking about my mental health and my lived experiences. But it also gave me the opportunity to so that the people that I'm working with do understand that I have that empathy and understanding firsthand, from lived experience. And I guess the way I overcame that, it was more just around, I don't have that fear of telling my story anymore. And that's also come with age because I'm 51 now and I will just talk about anything now. I'm an open book. So I felt that, yeah, with age that's helped. And just getting more understanding, of that side of mental health that, it is better and you'll get more out of opening up to other people because, I've even done it in Royal Commissions now. I've even actually sat in Royal Commissions and actually talked about my lived experience, which once upon a time was really hard, but it's no longer anymore. And I feel that I can help people if I also tell my lived experience.
Yeah, that's great. So it's all about open conversations. I think you were talking as well when we spoke the other day, Karyn, that people know that if you genuinely care and that you come in with authenticity, and going back to your point, Sam, about respect during conversations and really practicing that deep listening as well. It's not just about sharing our lived experience story, but about listening very deeply, and that helps us in our work. So another question that came up from somebody only yesterday, and again this comes up time and time again, is how do you get the first door to open? Because we do hear from people that they really want to work in suicide prevention, but they find that it's a challenge just to get your foot in the door. And I think this is a good one for you, John, because you were talking about opening doors earlier. What does that look like? What did that feel like to you? And how did you get your first door open?
Yeah, good question. Look, I looked at it very, I guess, strategically. I've often described it as playing chess. Number one, you can't come across as being angry and aggressive. You've got to come across as being quite thoughtful. But I also linked up with a not-for-profit and joined their committee. And then when I wrote letters to politicians and whatnot, I could say, right, committee member in this organisation, and then started to try and legitimise myself. Because I knew I'd be just seen as a grieving father and like, yeah, he's gone public with this. And I was very mindful about not being seen as just being totally reactive. I knew pretty well, I remember the second when knew I was going to go down this path and I was called to do this work. And yeah, just have a little bit of a think about it. Don't be too reactionary, and move towards becoming, affiliated with good organisations.
That's really helpful, John. And I think sometimes just making that first step, opening that first door, finding those groups that you really align and that resonate with you is really important as a starting point. We've got an interesting question here that I'd like to pass to Fairley. And this is about talking about your lived experience story in your work. And they've asked, and I guess this is around safe language and just talking, but yet being open. How have you found that experience about sharing your lived experience, Fairley, as part of your work?
As a part of my work, you mean in a workplace or as a part of my work?
In your work, sorry, in suicide prevention.
Yeah, it's suicide prevention. Well, you can go back to the challenges, so to the breaking down the barriers to actually connect as a volunteer on my own, and then now belonging to an organization. If I'm going off track, please tell me. It's I lost the track. It was, what was it again? Ask me the question again, if you don't mind.
Asking, have you found in the work that you've done recently, Fairley, that there's a possibility that you may be harmed by being open about your lived experience, or
in my workplace? Yes.
And how to navigate that?
Yeah, so stigma is still very much around that, but like I think I mentioned once, I'm not shy anymore. I'm not ashamed anymore about my experience, so I talk about it openly. And I think till I got to that point, it was always, but even now I do have those challenges, because I do a normal job, and at the workplace I don't discuss this openly. It's only with people who I connect with, and it's there is a connection. One of your staff members are going through something, and you usually find out that there has been some sort of suicide thoughts or loss in their family background. So that's something that I struggle with, but I'm getting there, and being more open about it, and being vulnerable is something that I feel I need to be more. The more vulnerable I am, the more people open up to me, and I'm able to help them.
Thanks so much, Fairley.
Sorry,
We've got a question come through. This, I think, John, this is a great question for you. How do you begin the process of the safe community hubs, the safe spaces, and are there grants still available at the moment?
Yeah, sort of is right up my alley, that one. And no, there's no grants at this point, not with Roses in the Ocean. What the future holds around grants, I would love to see 200 safe spaces across Australia when I step away. So I would like to see more grants, and I feel there will be. So watch our website, I guess. But how I started it, I managed to get Busselton as a pilot site with the original 4 safe spaces. When I achieved that, it was self-funded, so I went out and raised the funds, so there was no money available at that point, and I did that by sharing my lived experience. I found community members that have been affected by suicide, and they don't necessarily need to or want to step up and do that sort of work, but they maybe can financially contribute, and that's what I did. But I guess I was very prolific in the media. I went very, very public with my story very early on, with the intent to raise awareness and save lives. And on the back of that, I'm not blowing my own trumpet or anything, but I became quite well known. And people, I guess, felt if they did donate money, it was going to go in the right direction. And I was very mindful about that. So, start exploring fundraising and get people together and put a committee together of like-minded people with lived experience towards setting up a safe space, and it's achievable.
And just following on from John's comment there, Karyn, you would probably be able to also contribute some insight into this type of work and safe spaces. You're on mute. You're on mute. There we go.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, no, it's been amazing to for our community to be able to go and get that support that's needed, especially when it comes to Indigenous people, and not just Indigenous people. We're not just open to Indigenous people, we're open to anybody, but we're Indigenous focused. And when it comes to our people, they don't generally want to go to a clinic. They feel a lot of shame, and they just prefer to be and talk with somebody that's got that lived experience or who they might know to some point. And because I am a local girl in Darwin, a lot of people know who we are anyway. So they feel a lot more comfortable coming to us. Can you guys still hear me? Because it looks like I've been...
Loud and clear, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no worries. But yeah, no, it's been the best thing for us.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Karyn. And just going back to what we were talking about earlier, and this goes back to our first question. So I'm actually going to come back to you, Sam, because we've got someone who's asked, so starting off is difficult. Is there a specific course or degree that is recommended? And I guess you can talk a little bit more to your story about where your starting point was, because you said that you've got a PhD, we've all got a PhD in lived experience. So if you can talk more to that, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look, I don't actually have any qualifications in mental health or in suicide prevention other than my own lived experience. I guess, I started out by doing as many suicide prevention, life keeper, gatekeeper training courses as I could possibly do that were available within my local community. I jumped on every volunteering opportunity that might be able to provide me with some upskilling. It was, for me, it was a slow starter. I really started small and just, I just started, I guess, volunteering my time a couple of hours a week, and slowly built up my confidence, my capabilities, and my understandings around that. I would say self-education has been something that I've really thrown myself into. So, Roses in the Ocean have some fantastic resources around, the right kind of language to use. Every Mind has mind frame guidelines. If you're stepping into media or you're talking to someone, in that space, realistically bringing compassion. It doesn't matter who you are. We can bring compassion to every conversation. We can bring validation in that. And I mentioned before, it was a conversation that saved my life, not just started me off in the lived experience space, but it actually made me feel validated and like I belonged, that I wasn't going, a little bit mad with those thoughts that were going on. So I would encourage everybody, start where you are, start small, and please, I guess, reach out to other organizations and Roses in the Ocean to find platforms and use your strengths.
Thanks, Sam. And we will be sharing some of those resources from Roses in the Ocean later on in this session. We have another question here. This one's for John. So this question is, my question is, how do you deal with so many false starts? This person's asked this because they've tried many different ways to start something in their own community, but they feel like they're not doing it correctly. They're a volunteer facilitator for a mental health support group at present, but they feel like and feel that this would be a good place to start, but they really appreciate your input into that.
Yeah, I guess resilience. There was so many things that I started that didn't get off the ground, and some things that I started that did get off the ground and then fallen by the wayside. It's maybe focus on one thing and get some like-minded people together. Rather than trying to put all your irons in so many fires. Perhaps, just starting off with one idea, like maybe, I'm biased, I guess, but maybe a safe space or something like that. And, it doesn't have to be a Roses in the Ocean safe space. There's many different versions going around at the moment. But I think key to a lot of what I did was having like-minded people on committees, and even if your role is only to set up that committee, and understanding that the people on that committee need certain skill sets and building it like that, because it's too difficult to do some things on your own. Some things you can, but you know, like going out in the media and whatnot, but setting up organizations and running, you know, setting up collaboratives or whatever, obviously, even by the name of them, you know, they involve getting people, like-minded people together and working together as a team.
Thanks, John. And I think everybody on this panel has had various false starts in their work in suicide prevention. You were only talking about, you know, doors being closed, John. But I think, you know, the tenacity and resilience that you've demonstrated in the work that you do in suicide prevention demonstrates that we can achieve what we set out to do. You just got to keep going and find the right people to work with. And once that starts, that's where the action really happens. Now, Fairley, I'd like to pass this to you, although it's a question for the panel in general. How do you handle self-care in your work in suicide prevention?
That's a very important question, because I mean, I think self-care is very important, and that's why I always refer to lived experience as a part of the living experience as well. So self-care is something that I take seriously, because as a volunteer, I need to make sure that I'm in the right space when I meet with my peers and my people that I support with. So, well, obviously we all who have been through some sort of we have the you know, we've been given the techniques to sort of, so you constantly keep that in your mind when you, because it can get quite draining. And I've had episodes where I have got so caught up with the story that it's been very true and close to my story. And then of course not all stories align with what you've been through. So, you know, and yeah, so the self-care part of it is very important. And I think what I do is I use the techniques and I use all that stuff and for myself. And yeah, every morning that's something that I do, and every night something that I do, because in my kind of work I don't have a set you know, I might have a very, very busy day and then not have, you know, anything for 2-3 days. So I've sort of always prepared with that, and I think I keep referring to the living experience, because I've had a few, you know, as I speak to more people, I tend to get too involved, and then the frustrations come in because I don't belong to an organization and I can't get that help any further. So then that all sort of comes into play. So yeah, we have to definitely keep that as a priority, because, you know, and so those are what I mean, I apply all the techniques that I know, you know, the mindfulness of what I'm doing. And but like I said, I get a lot out of it that helps me. And
Thanks, Hello. Thank you so much. I think this one's a good one also to pass to the other members of the panel. Sam, what are your thoughts on self-care?
Look, I mean, I guess self-care is it's an essential part of working in this space. I don't think we can work in this space or volunteer in this space, whatever, contribute in this space without knowing what your indicators are when things aren't tracking so well. I'm very mindful about having rituals around, you know, when I'll close my laptop or what I will say yes to. So it's about knowing your limits, and knowing what your strengths are, and when are the times that you need to step back. Particularly for me, I will step back during anniversaries and birthdays. For me, I feel that I can't contribute in a helpful way during those times. And so it's very important for me to take a step back. That might not be right for everybody, but it's certainly worked for me, understanding what my limitations are knowing what my self-care strategies are ahead of time so that I can enact them. And going back to my original really message of keeping it simple. Self-care needs to be achievable, sustainable, very simple for me to do. If it's too hard, I won't do it.
Yeah.
I'll move into burnout.
Great answer. Thanks, Sam. John, we'll come to you while we wait for Karyn to join us again.
I think self-awareness for me is really important. I tend to push myself to the limits often. I'm some might say almost obsessed with suicide prevention, but I mean also, in my situation and for myself personally, doing this work is a form of self-care. It's something that I need to do, and it helps me to deal with a lot of things by actively fighting suicide. But having said that, I know, like Sam said, anniversaries and things like that, I'm no good for this role in any way, and I won't do myself or anyone any favors. And being self-aware enough to know those times, and it's not always straightforward for me. I'm very much a work in progress. So sometimes last year I might have been okay with something, and this year I'm not. So I think recognizing the signs in yourself when you're heading in a bad direction, and and I've got simple things that I do as well, which is getting out in the forest, and that relief is almost instantaneous. And recently discovering a bit of art, doing that, and it just switches off my head, which tends to work over time.
Yeah. Really interesting, isn't it? I think self-care means something different to all of us, and we have different ways to manage our self-care and also our collective care and supporting each other in the work that we do as well. There is a question that has come through, and I'm going to pass this to John simply because you have extensive experience with the media, right? And the question we've had is, do you have any tips or guidance on how to protect ourselves from media? If the person's had experience of confidential information being given to the media, and that resulted in a journalist from a local newspaper coming to this person's residential address and wanting to interview this person. And it was really shocking and traumatic. And when they declined the interview, they went ahead and ran the story anyway. And so they're really reticent about coming forward to engage in this type of work. And I think that we'd really benefit from your insights on this, John, because you've been quite involved in the media space previously.
Yeah, I very much look at it from a different angle. Like, I consider the media a tool run by tools. And I always used it as such. So I approached them and very purposely went in with my story. Recently, in the last probably 12 months, I've gone in the opposite direction, and I don't have anything to do with them, and I don't feel the need to anymore. I feel like it's achieved its purpose. I know there is, Sam would probably be able to help me, and the name escapes me at the minute. There is an organisation that dodgy media tactics such as that can be reported to, and they can be held to account to. And I would encourage you to do that, because they need to be pulled up with that sort of behaviour. It's not appropriate. I'm, like I said earlier, I'm involved with Every Mind, and we're very much looking at things along the lines of how we can use our lived experience with the media and also educate the media. Because at the end of the day, they're still just human beings trying to do a job. But they will zone in on a juicy story and go hard. And I've had family members attacked by the media, which is, I guess, a big reason why I don't need or want much to do with it anymore at the moment. Sam, what was that name of that organisation? It just escapes me.
Look, there's several. So there's eSafety Commission. You can always report that to them. There's also the media reporting ombudsman that you can report to, and working with Every Mind and Mind Frame guidelines, and definitely linking in with them is super helpful. I've had some really hit and miss opportunities with the media, and I've seen some very poor behaviour, but I also have had the opportunity to work with some people in the media who really want to make a difference and want to report in a way that's respectful. I would say Roses in the Ocean run a lived experience in the media workshop, which is super helpful because that actually gave me I guess a guideline, a checklist of what to ask and what to check in for. So I always ask that media organisation if I'll get to see the print before it's published. I always ask if they have fully read the Mindframe media guidelines so that they're fully across the language. I will send them through the language and imagery guidelines. And I constantly revisit conversations around language that is unhelpful in the media with those organisations, whether it be through respectful conversations, but also an email or a letter that just says, you know, from my lived experience perspective, I would ask that you don't use this term for these reasons, and would list that.
Thank you so much, both of you, and I hope that was really helpful because there was some great information there. Well, we're going to move on to the next part of our session now. We apologise, everyone. Karyn has dropped off, but she is trying very hard to join us again. She's in an area where reception is not great, so she's doing her best to join us again. We've had a lot of questions come through, so please rest assured that for those questions we haven't answered today, we will certainly get back to you in the coming days. And we'd have liked to have covered everything, but of course, with all the questions that came through, we weren't able to do that in the time that we've got today. So we're just going to move on to some potential opportunities that you might want to consider through Roses in the Ocean. Julia is just going to share some information with you now. Okay, so while there are a myriad of training opportunities available, and these are run by suicide prevention organisations, the image that you're seeing now is a Roses in the Ocean Career Pathways grid that may be of interest to those of you who wish to build your capacity and harness and integrate your lived experience in various suicide prevention activities. And this kind of leads back to the question that Sam answered earlier around the qualifications that you can embark upon when you want to work in suicide prevention. I can say that all of our panel members have either participated in a Voices of Insight or our Voice in Action, and this is aligned with their work in suicide prevention. And they've also used that as a launch pad to go on to other training and other suicide prevention activities as well. If you would like to look into this in greater detail, Julia will share the details of our website, and the link will be shared at the end of the session. Now, what this grid also demonstrates is that if there are other areas that you would like to focus on, such as peer work or crisis support, there is external training available outside of Roses in the Ocean for you to focus on these particular areas. And Julia will now take you through some opportunities that are available through Roses in the Ocean, where organisations actually come and partner with us for the integration of lived experience expertise.
Thank you. So we do have various opportunities, and I'm just sharing on the screen now some examples of the partnering organisations that Nicola and myself work with on a regular basis, who are looking to partner with people with a lived experience of suicide. So these engagements can include the engagement of lived experience expertise, research projects, as well as speaking engagements. Nick and myself view ourselves as the conduit for people to connect with these partnering organisations that request the engagement of lived experience expertise. There are various ways that we promote these resources and opportunities, including on our website, through socials, and by emails directly with the collective. And I will be sharing with everybody as well afterwards a link to where we post this on our website, so you can keep an eye out for that. We also have our peer care companion volunteering opportunities available. This is both in community and on the warm line. And if you're interested in following this pathway, please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen to find out more about how to be involved. Now I'm going to open everything back up to the panel and just stop sharing my screen again shortly. For Fairley, Sam and John, just before we finalise for today's session, just want to open it back up to you all and ask if there's one thing that you'd like everybody here today to leave with regarding working in suicide prevention. What would that be? John, I'll open up to you first.
Yeah, I was going to really hit back on the resilience side of things, you know, that you don't always kick a goal with everything you're doing, and don't be put off by that. But I also really want to just touch on just quickly that I don't also have any formal qualifications, and I've managed to find full-time work in the sector. I'm got formal plumbing qualifications, but they don't help towards this sometimes. But you know, so the resilience factor that, you know, the doors can be opened without having a diploma. I rely very much on my lived experience and my passion to drive that change. But also I'm very willing to learn. I'll go forward with an open heart and listen to people and constantly try and learn. I don't ever try and come across as being an expert in anything. So I think it's, you know, just the resilience side of things is really important. You know, I think sometimes people think they're going to go in and achieve amazing things straight away, and it just doesn't seem to work like that sometimes.
Thanks, John. Fairley. You're on mute, Fairley.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, I agree with what John was just saying. Yeah. Well, I believe that for me, by volunteering right from the start with little knowledge, and now with the knowledge gained and being involved in suicide prevention, I believe that it has helped me a lot in my grieving process, and also made me understand my own thoughts and feelings at the time when I went through, you know, the attempts and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I believe that, you know, yes, I've been doing it for 6 years, and yeah, yeah. So that's what I want to leave people with, that it is, you know, it is quite helpful and beneficial selfishly for myself, but, you know, and also the bonus is that, you know, you're helping others. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you so much, Fairley. And Sam.
Thank you. Look, really what I want to share is that there's so many ways to contribute in this space, you know, big or small, and we can all use our strengths. And I guess I really just wanted to say it doesn't matter who you are or what you wear or what qualifications that you have, but it's really about how you care, and keep it simple and sustainable, and make compassion your fashion. Everybody can do it.
I love that, Sam. Thank you. And Karyn has managed to join us. I don't know if she's actually able to see us on the screen.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Karyn. We just No, that's absolutely fine. We completely understand.
It's hard when you're out on a community because the internet's not very good out this way. So really sorry.
We completely understand. Yeah. So Julia's just asked a question of the panel just to finish us off.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, okay.
Just to recap, so I've just asked if there's a message that you want to leave everyone with today to keep in mind coming away from this session. What would that be?
I guess what I'd say is that it's really, like, if you do have lived experience, own it and use it to help others, because your biggest disadvantage in your life can actually end up being your biggest advantage, and into helping others and supporting others, you know, that, like in that mentoring role, or just there to support and listen to them. Yeah, so that'd probably be my biggest thing for me to take that I've taken away. Like I always thought, like I think, was it Sam that said, you know, we may not have a PhD or a degree in this, but we have lived experience. We've been through this all our lives, you know, so we do have that understanding. We do have a PhD in mental health, so, and suicide ideation. So it's I think that it's really important to own it, not be ashamed of it, own it.
Thank you so much to each and every one of you. And thank you to all attendees who've joined us today. I know that I found this session incredibly valuable, and I always learn more from people with a lived experience every day that I have the privilege to work and walk alongside people with a lived experience of suicide. I would like to extend that sincere and heartfelt thanks to our contributors today. And I know there were so many questions, and I know that people have even more questions on top of the questions that they've already asked. So I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have another session like this, or at least, you know, eventually, but we will come back to everybody with our answers in the coming days from our panel members. Julia, what have you got out of today?
For me, I've really come away with the sense that we all have a passion for suicide prevention, and it's about finding the skills that we already have in the workplace and finding a way to utilize them and bring our passion together to work. And that it really doesn't matter what we're doing in this space. There's a place for everybody in every different form, and we can really do this work. And when it gets to the hard parts, we can take a step back without completely stepping away as well, or change that pathway and find different ways to reach that goal, even if it isn't the path we initially thought it would be. So thank you everyone on our panel. We really value your time and expertise. It's been fantastic to have everyone join us today. Now, just to close off, we will have a poll that will pop onto your screens as you leave this webinar, just to get a sense on how you feel coming away from this. Just a reminder, we do have the very first community group mentoring session occurring next Tuesday with the incredible Karyn Allen and Ray O'Brien. And we also have our national mentoring callback service available to every single member of our collective. So if you would like more one-on-one support, please don't hesitate to reach out. And we'll be hosting our next session next month in April. This will be focusing on the suicide prevention policy landscape, and it will be led by our incredible Stephen Scott. So we really hope to see you all join us again next month for that session. Thank you all so much, and thank you once again to our fantastic contributors for a great session.
Thank you.
Thank you.